Look at this spectacular land. The towering Hindu Kush Mountains. The dry, wide plains. This is Afghanistan. Its geography has defined its history. It sits at the very center of the Asian continent. This location made it the world's most important trade route. The Silk Road. Silks, spices, and jewels passed through here. But so did armies, ideas, and religions. Around 500 BC, the mighty Persian Empire ruled parts of this land. Then came the most famous invader of all, Alexander the Great. He arrived around 330 BC. He defeated the local kingdoms, married a local woman, and left behind Greek cities and culture. For centuries, the culture here was a beautiful mix of Greek and local traditions. For many years, Afghanistan was a great center for Buddhism. It was home to huge, incredible statues of the Buddha carved into the cliffs of Bamyan. This cultural flowering lasted until the 7th century, when a new, powerful faith swept across the region. Islam. Islam quickly took root and became the dominant, enduring faith of the people. Even powerful empires like the Mongols in the 13th century found it impossible to truly control the people here. The people of Afghanistan were always organized into strong, independent tribes and clans. They valued freedom and local rule above all else. This tribal structure, combined with the rugged mountains, made full control impossible for any foreign power. Out of this long history of resistance, a modern nation finally took shape. In 1747, a military leader named Ahmad Shah Durrani united many of the tribes. He started the Durrani Empire. This is when the modern Afghan state, with its own identity and borders, truly began. The 19th century brought a new global threat. The huge British Empire, which controlled India, was afraid of the growing power of Russia to the north. These two giants played a geopolitical contest known as the Great Game. Afghanistan was trapped between them. It was forced to act as a buffer state, a neutral zone to keep the peace between the two major powers. The British attempted to invade and control Afghanistan 3 different times. The First Anglo-Afghan War, 1839 to 1842, was a disaster for the British. Their army was nearly wiped out. The Afghans fought fiercely for their independence. They never allowed themselves to be fully conquered. This is why the country earned its famous nickname, the Graveyard of Empires. After a final conflict, Afghanistan won full independence in 1919. The new kings began the process of modernization. They built schools, created a constitution, and started to open the country to the outside world. This era was about trying to balance ancient traditions with modern progress. From 1933 to 1973, Afghanistan was a kingdom under King Zahir Shah. This was the longest, most stable period the country had ever known. The capital, Kabul, became cosmopolitan. Many women went to university and held professional jobs. But underneath the peace, political groups with radical ideas, both communist and fundamentalist, were starting to grow strong. In 1973, King Zahir Shah was overthrown by his cousin, Daud Khan. The monarchy was over. Daud Khan struggled to keep control. The political system was tearing apart. In 1978, a small, violent, pro-Soviet group called the Communist Party, PDPA, launched a bloody coup. They took power and started a dictatorship. The new communist government enforced radical change immediately. They took land from religious leaders and tried to secularize education. They arrested and executed opponents. This was a massive shock to the deeply religious and traditional country. People rose up in rebellion across the countryside. The Soviet Union feared their communist allies would be defeated. On Christmas Eve, 1979, the Soviet Red Army invaded. They wanted to prop up the weak Afghan government. This started a brutal, 10-year-long war. The Afghan resistance fighters were known as the Mujahideen, Holy Warriors. The United States, Pakistan, and others poured money and weapons, like Stinger missiles, into the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets. It was the last great battle of the Cold War. The Mujahideen bled the Soviet army dry. The war became too costly and too unpopular in Moscow. The Soviets finally withdrew in 1989. The Soviet withdrawal was not the end of suffering. It was only the beginning of a new chapter. Once the Soviets were gone, the different Mujahideen factions turned their weapons on each other. A terrible civil war ripped the country apart from 1992 to 1996. Infrastructure was ruined. Law and order vanished. In this chaos, a new, highly conservative religious group called the Taliban emerged. They promised to end the fighting and bring stability. Using a very strict version of Islamic law, the war-weary people initially welcomed the order, but the Taliban imposed extremely harsh rules, especially on women who were barred from work and school. The Taliban seized Kabul in 1996. The Taliban sheltered a powerful terrorist group called Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda planned and executed the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. The U.S. and NATO forces invaded Afghanistan to dismantle Al-Qaeda and overthrow the Taliban government. They were successful in quickly removing the Taliban from power. For the next 20 years, an Afghan republic was built with billions of dollars in foreign aid. A new government was elected. Millions of children went back to school. But the Taliban continued their insurgency from the shadows. The fighting never truly stopped. After lengthy negotiations, the U.S. and NATO forces completed their withdrawal in August 2021. The Afghan army and government collapsed in a matter of days. The Taliban walked back into Kabul and took control once more. The nation's history, defined by conflict, struggle, and resistance, turned a new, uncertain page.